now, comrades, grab your little red book and your defunct AK-47 copy, because today we're going to be talking about the People's Republic of China, led by our glorious leader, with eyes too small to see through, Xi Jinping, who is one of the freest leaders in the world, along with Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, and also that one guy in Myanmar. These three great nations, excluding Myanmar, protect the world from the Western imperialists. But how does China protect itself from the Western imperialists that totally exist and were not fabricated by the Chinese government? Well, all it needs is a strong army. And what they mean by strong army means big army. Big doesn't really mean that good, but hey, at least you have thousands of tanks to throw at the enemy. Now, how does China make a big army? Well, simple. China is the largest manufacturing country in the world. Basically, everything that you are wearing and is in your house right now and you're holding right now is made in China, and they can make so much at such a quick rate. Now, what if they just turn all those factories into tank and gun factories? That's how they do it. But this doesn't really mean that it's good quality. I mean, like, it's the country that accidentally launches a satellite rocket into a nearby village. You know, that country. So they are the best. They don't have the best military, but they sure do have a big military. Now, technically, China doesn't have a military. Only the Chinese Communist Party does. The People's Liberation Army is not an army for China. It is the army for, the Chinese Communist Party. But army is not really a good word for it, because it's not really the army. Because with the West, they say that the army is, ground forces. But in the East, the former and current communist countries, they just call it ground forces. And it kind of makes sense, because it's the ground forces. Now, among the People's Liberation Army ground forces will also include those air units and those ship units that they have, and of course those armored units, which will totally never ever blow up while driving on a dirt road. Then there's also some other branches for the People's Liberation Army that isn't the ground forces: the Air Force, Rocket Force, and of course the Navy. Let's focus on the Navy for 1 second. The Chinese Navy has gone through an very, very fast growth process, modernizing very quickly. They now have the largest Navy in the world with over 200 active ships out there in the water. Watch out, America! But unfortunately for China, most of these ships are like fun-sized Snicker bars. They're basically one atom compared to an elephant that is the United States Navy. So, yeah, you can have a lot of ships, but if they're literally just like 50% of the mass that the American Navy has, you're not able to do much with it. Also, submarines are a very important thing with navies. Unfortunately, China hasn't exactly been caring about underwater stuff. They're more caring about, the above water stuff. The moving targets that they so elaborately craft so that the Americans have a better turkey shoot. But at least they put a rail gun on one of their destroyers.
雪花飘飘，北风萧萧.
It was kind of a lie when I said that they put a railgun on a destroyer, because it isn't a railgun on a destroyer. It's just a railgun on a landing craft. Now, this doesn't really make sense, but hey, what type of ship does China want to lose the most? Well, the landing ships, obviously. So why don't they just put their experimental gun on one of their landing ships? Roughly translated to Sea Mountain. This new vessel has been undergoing trials, and it seems to have a railgun on the bow, making it one of the first countries to actually slap a railgun onto one of their ships. Now, what is a railgun? It's magnets, and you put magnets in specific science
Western
way, and then make metal projectile go very, very fast without gunpowder. And that's a railgun. But this is a relatively new technology. While this idea had been out there for a long, long time, it's pretty new, and barely any countries have ever decided to put any sort of railgun, coil gun, or anything like that onto one of their active ships. China is a pioneer with new technologies, and it shows, from totally not hoaxed laser rifles that can set fire to other things from a distance to, railguns. China really, really likes new technologies. They are a technological civilization. The phone or the device that you are using right now is technology. quite new technology actually, and it was assembled in China. So don't expect China to be behind the technology curve besides its whole, firewall thing. China's actually doing pretty good with the technology thing if you get rid of the whole quality issues and the fact that they're exploding in people's hands thing. But who cares if you have new technologies when you have a metric butt ton of men? So money you can just throw at the enemy and, have them killed. And then, after the enemy thinks that it's all over, another wave comes, and then they kill them all. And then another wave comes, and over and over and over again. This is an ancient tactic called human wave attack. And this is probably the only thing that the Chinese ground forces could do. It could be armored waves, which are probably more susceptible to, being blown up. And of course the human waves, which are very susceptible to drone fire and machine gun fire. Stuff America's, known for. So that's not really good strategy. But hey, if it works, it works. This is how Mao Zedong was able to rally his men and send them over to North Korea and push through American lines all the way back to the 30th parallel, which it still stays today. It was really kind of like a waste of a war. But how can Mao Zedong rally all his men to do that? I mean, that's kind of like a suicide mission. Throwing waves and waves of your men at an enemy is basically like signing a death sentence. Now, while it may be good sometime in the future, you don't really want to die that quickly right after you join the military. So, how could Mao Zedong do it? Well, easy. Charisma. The people were so entranced by this squinty-eyed leader that they wanted to follow his every single move. Unfortunately, that's not China today. For most Chinese soldiers, while they look strong and on the outside, are probably going to run away like a flock of chickens the moment that the farmer, aka America, comes in with a shotgun. But Xi Jinping is trying to fix that. Remember all of the propaganda films, propaganda books, propaganda posters, and of course, propaganda music that Mao Zedong pumped out for his citizens and farmers and poor people and dead people to learn from. Xi Jinping is trying to copy that, but in a more modern style. Now, he's targeting not the farmers, but the school children. Xi Jinping thought is, Xi Jinping thought is currently the official thought of the Chinese Communist Party because Mao Zedong totally never lived, and Xi Jinping now completely controls all of China and the Chinese education system. Now, while all those weak paper tiger soldiers that are so blatantly pretending that they're strong in their 70th anniversary march will now be soon replaced by loyal and also stupid soldiers that Xi Jinping has been pumping out. Xi Jinping is now forcing school children to learn about, classic Chinese stuff. For example, kill all white people, kill all American people, and also kill all white American people. The average stuff that you learn in schools. And because of this, Xi Jinping can now create a new generation of loyal Mao Zedong-style soldiers to march into Taiwan with. Taiwan. I'm sorry, I meant Chinese Taipei. Taiwan, also known as Chinese Taipei, also known as the Republic of China, is a quite controversial, disputed region. The Chinese government says that Taiwan is theirs, part of China, just a rebellious province that needs to be reunited with the mainland China. The United Nations says, however, that Taiwan, or the Republic of China, is its own independent nation. Now, there have been many debates, but I'm just going to call Taiwan an autonomous country because, basically everybody in the world besides China and his allies agrees that. So, what is the dispute about Taiwan? Well, basically what happened is that after the Chinese Civil War, the Republic of China or the nationalist forces were not really having a very good time with the whole losing thing. So in order for them to not be rounded up and executed and thrown into one of their rehabilitation camps, they will be sent all the way over there to Taiwan, the island of Taiwan. Now, it is a nice island. It has a stable population today, but unfortunately, China really, really wants to take it back, or at least, reoccupy this totally not autonomous country. I'm sorry, province. But Taiwan is kind of a very big issue right now, mainly because it's allies with the United States of America, and because the West is so technology saturated, it might not help to China the fact that most of the world's like digital card things are made in, Taiwan. So if China were able to seize Taiwan, they would not be just controlling a tiny little island that not many people care about. They would be controlling about 60% of all the electronic card industry, which would be pretty bad for all, the Western countries, including Japan and the United States. Speaking of the United States of America, Joe Biden once proclaimed on an interview with national television that he would indeed respond with military force if China were to invade Taiwan. And this is a pretty big issue because now you have two most powerful countries in the world today clashing together over this one tiny island that people keep on forgetting to add on the map. And this is pretty bad. I mean, yeah, Taiwan's an important place. You can find dolphins and, like dead orcas and, electronic chip card things. But still, are we going to do World War III about this island? It's not like any other world war was caused by a small thing. And, So, there's not much that people can do about this. These two countries absolutely despise each other. The debates that they have against each other are even hotter and even more furious than the debates between Republicans and Democrats. So this is a pretty big issue. And seeing the fact that these are two powers with nuclear weapons and they both have their own space station, or at least own a lot of space station and that stuff, it's pretty concerning about the fact that these two powers want to go to war with each other so badly. But unfortunately, China is China, and they don't really back down, even if their cause is so stupid that people can just laugh at it, call them clowns. But no matter what happens, all we know is that China has a relatively strong military, relatively terrible education system, and of course, they are now currently breeding a new generation of railgun hypnotized children to go invade Taiwan and beat the crap out of the United States, assuming that there's a revolution that takes place within that time. Your internet activity has caught the attention of the Chinese Communist Party. You have lost 10,000 social credits. You will also be sent to a rehabilitation camp. All hail, Big Pooh.